Hello, everyone. I'm going to share with you today a really good second half goal strategy that basically I showed it last year and loads of people had success with it. They kept messaging me through the season saying how well they're doing with it. I think because it's so simple, it's not a really tough one to follow and it's very simple to do. Now, what I will say is I'm going to show you some of the stats you need, and this is going to be basically helping you create your own strategy. So I'm not saying follow exactly this strategy bang on and it will make money. I'm saying use it. Use these stats. These are the stats you will need to create your own strategy. I'm going to show you what I've had success with as a Betfair trader. Now, one thing to note with the second half goal market is that the first half has an impact. Okay, so with this market, I want you to be looking at the in-play stats. Obviously, when you go to make your trade, check that there's been some action in the first half. I like at least 4 shots on target between the teams. I love it when it's 0-0. I also quite like it when it's 0-1, but the underdog scored first, especially if the underdog was the away team, because I would then expect the home team to score a second half goal, depending on the stats pre-match. And I'm going to show you that as well. Remember, with Betfair trading, if you're trading in play, it's really important to combine the pre-match stats with the in-play stats. Because if you ignore the pre-match stats, you might see some goals come from nowhere and you'll go, I don't know where that came from. It doesn't make any sense. Then you go back and look at the pre-match stats and go, okay, that's why that happened. Okay, you will be amazed how often the pre-match can guide what happens in the next match. Of course, it's just a pointer. It's just historical data. It's not Mystic Meg telling you exactly what's going to happen. But again, when you go through this yourself, you will be really surprised. Okay, that's enough chat. Let's get on to it. Now, I'm using the Betfair Trading Community stats software for football, and this is available to purchase. If it looks good, why not get involved? Just go to betfairtradingcommunity.com and you can do that. I've typed in today's date and today's matches have come up. So I'm going to look at here is Helsingborg versus, I don't know how to pronounce this, but Deja Force. It's funny how many times I've traded these teams and I have no idea how to pronounce the team names. And that's the beauty of Betfair trading, right? Especially when it's so data-driven as my trading is. So we can see here that half-time 0-0 happens 5% of the time, or 25% in percentage. 0-1 happens quite a lot, and they are the underdogs slightly. Okay, so that's interesting. If it was 0-0 or 0-1 at half-time, that might pique my interest for a second half goal. Now, when we look at full-time scores, we can see that it's only been 0-0 once, okay, or 5%. That's low, okay. Now, when I look at this stat, I want it to be 5% or less, okay. So that means that basically I want 0 or only one of the last 20 games to have been 0-0. The reason is you want a high success rate. If you're going to back a second half goal, you want to know that these teams get to 0-0 at half time, because I like 0-0 as a scoreline, and then they go on to score a goal. And we can see here that they've converted 80% of the time. So one thing we have to think about here is, okay, so we know that they convert a lot, right? 4 out of 5. And we know that they have a lot of second half goals. But let's have a look at this in a little bit more detail. So I want to have a look at goal times here. And again, this is really interesting. There's something that puts me off this trade a little bit when I do this. So as you can see, these are the goal times. And if you look, the percentages are pretty high in the first half, yeah? They kind of drop off a lot in the second half. And you get 11% between 51 and 60. But then late on, it kind of dies down a bit. Now, not massively. It's not a massive concern. What does concern me is that 43% of their goals come in the second half. So one other metric I really like to look at is, do the teams score more second half goals than first half goals? Because look, if it's 0-0 at half time and they score loads of first half goals, that's a worry for the second half, because I go, well, there's less chance they're going to score in this half. And what, you want me to back a second half goal? And let's remember, the second half goal odds often aren't very big, especially at half time. So one thing you might want to do here is look at getting on later on. I don't think this match is a great example for that, because they do actually score quite a lot between 51 and 60. You can maybe make an argument you'd start the trade at 50 minutes. It's not going to be a massively different price from the half-time price at 50 minutes. So let's have a look at another game here. If you are enjoying this video, we have a free gift for you, absolutely free. All you need to do in the comments is say the word Super Trader and we will send that over to you, and that will help you with your Betfair trading training. Okay guys, back to the video. Let's go for Nacional, Asuncion versus Sporting Liquino. I don't know. Again, I don't know how to pronounce these teams. Well, we can see here with the goal time, so it's 50-50. Again, not perfect, right? I want teams where they score a lot of second half goals. And what's interesting here is they score a huge amount of goals between the 31st and 45th minute and the 61st and 70th minute. Now, if it's 0-0, this is actually a really good selection, potentially, for Ryan's over 1.5 goal strategy. Because if you remember, he tends to get in at 30 minutes if it's 0-0. Well, if this is 0-0 at 30 minutes, there's a good chance there's a goal in the next 15. And if there's not, there's a really good chance there's a goal between 61 and 70. So that's really interesting, right? These are stats that stand out, but you might not notice if you don't bother to look at these games and go, okay, that's interesting. Let's go to the full-time scores here, okay? Way too many 0-0s for my liking, 0-1s and 1-0s. So that would be a concern, and that would probably be ultimately what would put me off any over 1.5 back. You know, it's interesting. They have a lot of 0-0 at half times. So, I mean, 12 games out of 20 is nuts. I mean, just to put that in perspective, 60% of their games are 0-0 at half time, which is huge. They do go on to convert, 40% of that 60% stats, so 2/3 of those games. But obviously the third they don't is going to hit you harder. So again, second half goal strategy, not for me. Okay, so I've moved over to Bolivia here, and we've got Independiente versus Nacional Potosi. Okay, select that game, and you can see here the halftime scores. Again, lots of 0-0s at halftime, 6 of the games, 30%. That's high, okay? But that's what we want. We want games that are going to be 0-0 at halftime. Only one of those 6 has ended 0-0. Okay, so they've converted 5 out of 6, around 85%. That is really, really good for us because we know we're probably going to get decent odds at half time. But let's see, can we get even better odds later in the half and make this an even better trade? Let's go have a look at those goal times. And again, so for this video, because I know this is a training video for you to be able to develop your own strategy and see how you could trade the second half goals yourself, I want you to have a look at the halftime scores. Okay, again, these are all click of a button, really good, aren't they? Full-time scores, and I want you to look at goal times. Okay, this game looks really, really good, and I'm going to show you why. So, half one, 44% of their goals come in half one, and let's put that into totals, 28. But in half two, they're having 35 goals, which is 56%. This is basically the kind of trade where I'm going, if these stats are decent at half time and it's 0-0, I'm liking it, right? I'm really liking it. And again, we have a look here. You can see the goal times. Now, you might go here, wow, it doesn't look like there's likely to be a goal in the first 20 minutes. I might look to back a first half goal after 20 minutes, knowing full well that, yeah, there's a decent chance it doesn't happen. But if it doesn't happen, well, I'll just jump on the second half goal. Maybe I have a small stake on the first half goal so that if I back the second half goal, if that comes, I break even or I make a little bit of profit, which would be cool. Kind of a bit of an insurance type bet, if you know what I mean, just by splitting your stake that way. Although you're not Dutching the different outcomes there. It's really interesting because actually you can see that the goals come in the second half and they're quite frequent. 4 out of these 6 time slots in the second half have higher than 10% chance of goals being scored, which is cool. 10% of their goals being scored, much more than 10% actually probably. So really interesting. Okay, we've got 56%. This is basically kind of hits 3 things that I really like. They have half-time 0-0s. They convert a really high percentage of those, 85% so far this season. and they score the majority of their goals in the second half, and they do score plenty of goals. Again, something that really matters. So these are 3 metrics I really want you to look at and focus on, and that if you're doing a second half goal bet. Now, the second thing is, as I've said before, I want to see that there's been action. I want to see that there's been shots on target, like I say, about 4. I want to see maybe a couple of shots off target as well. I want to see a few corners, maybe 2 or 3 corners at least, okay? And then you go and look at, well, has this been an attacking game? Do they look like they might score? If you're not able to watch the match, look at the in-play stats. You'll be amazed what you can see by looking at in-play stats and looking at the pre-match stats. And when you can marry those 2 things together, you can come up with a really powerful trade. So I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have enjoyed this video, why not say second half goal in the comments? That lets me know that you've enjoyed the video, that you want more content like this in the future, and I'll be able to do that for you. As ever, please like, comment, subscribe on the videos. It really helps us, and it means that we can continue to keep giving you this incredible information absolutely free here on YouTube and on the podcast. So yeah, please do that for us, and we'll repay it in kind by delivering these videos. I hope you have a great week, everyone, and I hope you make some money trading on Betfair.